Welcome, Wapplers from around the world. My name is Mark. I'm known as Mark1 on the forum, and this is our July 2024 monthly meetup. Thank you for joining us today. We had a little change in agenda, and we had to reschedule Keith's presentation of his Bright Yard video, which we'll be announcing the rescheduling soon. But we have a special treat for you today. We have a new video series by Mr. Brian English. Brian is a expert Wappler educator. He's a database savant, and he's also a grandfather. And it proves there's nothing that he can't do. So we're going to start with one of his videos, and then we will have a short Wappler conversation afterwards. And I thank you again for joining us today. And I practice sharing my screen. And we will go to share. There we go.
My name's Brian English, forum name Hyperbytes, and I'd like to welcome you to this new series on building Server Connect and App Connect custom modules and formatters. This module is not a JavaScript tutorial as such. It's primarily designed to show you how to create the HJSON files required to interface with custom modules and formatters, the inbuilt methods used within Wappler to parse any output passed over from the input to the modules, and also how to integrate third-party NPMs via the Wappler interface. So we'll start the course by looking at Server Connect modules and formatters, and then at the end of the course apply what we've learned to App Connect and to produce the App Connect extensions. So let's make a start. So let's first of all have a look at project settings. In this particular project, I'm actually based in Docker. So if we look at our project options, you can see that, look at our general options, and you can see there from targets, this is quite clearly a Docker-based project. And if we go into extensions, you will see options to create a new extension, add an extension, and delete an extension. If I want to add an extension, I just click on the plus sign and we can add the npm name or the GitHub repo name, and we can add that extension in. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to swap project, and I'm going to go into a pre-made project. Now this one we will see is Wappler development local server. So you'll see our target is also local server. And this is a mistake that you can make right at the very start, which is going to cause you problems, because if we go into our extensions and click add, you'll see that it says that you can't add a custom extension to a Wappler local server based extension. So that's a message you get. It says change it over to own server, but of course you can't do that. So that's why I'm highlighting it now. You've got to get this right when you first create your project. So what's the way around that? Well, it's actually very simple. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create now a new project, and this is going to be a project we'll use throughout the initial stages of our tutorial. So we're going to look at down to wrong one. I'm going to create a new folder in here just called extensions. Sorry about this. There we are. But I'm going to change that to own server. And then we're going to be using Node.js throughout all this course. I might make some references to PHP, but basically we're going to be sticking with Node. So right, so I'm going to save that. it will ask you about installing your node packages as required. There we are. Now we can go back into our settings. I'm going to go into the extensions, targets. You'll see that we can now actually just change the development target to Wappler local server, and that'll work absolutely fine. That's no problem. We go to extensions now, and we have the ability to add extensions. So what we've done is we've created a own server setup, but we've set the target to be Wappler local server, and that works absolutely fine. So that's the site or the project that we're going to be doing everything in our initial stages. So I suppose it's time now to start looking at a bit of HJSON code, so we'll have a look at that next. Okay, so let's take a look at our HJSON and JS files. I've put this into a web page because, as you probably know, you can't actually add a comment into a JSON file. So I've copied this over into a web page so I could add the comments in red. So we have the HJSON on the left panel, and we have some very, very simple JavaScript on the right. So in this example, I'm going to look at lines 2 and 3 first. We have a module statement, and that defines the name of the associated JS file. So in this case, this module would look for a JavaScript file called mymodule1.js. Action is to do with the function itself within that file, our JS file. You see action my code, and if we look at the other side, we'll see it says exports my code 1, and that is the action name, so they must match for the JS function to integrate with the HJSON interface definition file. Convention is that your type, it can be anything, you can put actually any unique name in there, but the convention is it's the module underbar action name. Where does that convention come from? Basically George says so, so I'm not going to argue with him. We have a group title. The group title is the group title that you would see within a API file. So if I just create an API file, these are your group titles, and these are your predefined ones that you have there, but you can add your own individual sections within that as well. So in this case, the group title is test modules. It will create a completely new entry in that list called test modules, and it will use the icon, the font awesome icon, as defined within group icon. Those two elements must be there, obviously. Just as a little aside, if you're integrating with an existing category, then you need to specify its font awesome group icon, which means you've got to know what the group icon is. I have produced a list which is published on the forum which maps those across. If you leave it out, you'll end up with it. You basically remove the icon from that interface. The title, that's the title obviously of the module itself, and then you have the icon individual to the action that we had, or the module that we're defining here. So what we'll have is the group will be test modules. Within that group of test modules, you will have an element called demo test module, which will be showing, in this case, a question mark icon. Then we're going to our properties. At the moment, the only properties we're looking at is the variables. So first of all, we've got a group statement here, and it says test data, and that is the data that you would see or the entry that you would see, I'll just randomly pick something up, set value. That's this entry here where it says set value properties. So in this case, that panel would be headed with test data, and then we're only defining two variables, and these are the mandatory ones that you will need within any JSON file. It must have a name option and it must have an output option. So in this we're saying, right, our action name, and that is just simply a unique name used internally for the that variable within the UI. Option's name is name, that is the option that is passed to your function. That will be found at options.name. It has a title again that we would see in the in the interface. These are the titles here: name, global name, value, data type. Data type, obviously, in this case, is text. We have text and number, we have a number of other entries there, which we'll be looking at as we work through. Required, that's whether this is a mandatory input or not. That can be a true or false value, because obviously in some cases not every value would need to be completed. A default value, again, this can apply to all inputs, with a little bit of a quirk specific to the name input. If you put default value there and then add a new module, you would sort of expect the default value to appear in there. So if we go back here, let's say we add a database query, you notice we have a default entry appears there of query. And for a long time I made the assumption that that is what should happen, and by putting in the default value, and it didn't. I assumed it was a bug for a long time. Well, it turns out specific to that particular name variable, to do that you have to add an extra line in, base name. By adding base name module 1, that means that module 1 will appear as a default name for your module. And then lastly, we need an output. Obviously there's no point in having a module or a format or whatever if you can't output the result of it. So again, that's just name output, option name output, title output. It will be of type Boolean, and you should set that to a default of false. Apparently it can cause problems by setting it to true initially, so keep that at false. And that is basically a rundown of our interface components. So let's look at actually creating those files, and let's engage that interface, and let's have a look at the output of the module itself. Okay, so we're now going to create the structure required for the testing of these extensions. It's pretty simple. All we do is we create a folder called extensions. These will be Server Connect extensions, so we create a subfolder of Server Connect, and then within that we create another folder, in this case modules, and when we get on to formatters we will need a folder called formatters. And we're going to be placing our files into these folders, ready for generating our interface. So let's create a file. Now our JS file name is called mymodule1. And we can pretty much call our HJSON file whatever we want. I'm going to create file. I'll just call it the same name. Just means that when you're visually looking at it, you can see which HJSON files match with the appropriate JS files. So what we need to do is to populate these. So I'm just going to do that now, and then we'll look at the populated files. Okay, so I've now added, first of all, the HJSON, which is the definition of the interface. I made a couple of minor changes, hope you don't mind. I've called the group title Tutorial Modules, rather than the original, which said Test Modules. And I've changed the title as well of this module to My First Module. And I'm just going to change that group title as well while we're busy to module inputs. So obviously our action is my code 1, my module, that module is my module 1, so our JS is my module 1, and here, very simple, export my code 1, reference to the objects, the options which we'll not be using at this stage, and all this is going to do is return OK. So what we need to do now is completely quit Wappler. So I'm going to do that from the tray icon of Windows, because I'm in a Windows environment, obviously. And then I'm going to reopen Wappler. Okay, so let's have a look and see what happens. I go into my module, an API action I've created called my module. Click on the and now we'll see we have a new category, tutorial modules. And if we select look, we can see my first module. That's it. We've actually created our first extension. I'm going to ask for that to be output. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to fire that in the browser. There we see, exactly as we expect, that returns the name of the server action and the data associated with it, which is a nice simple OK. So that is the module at its simplest form. We'll be building on that as we work through. I will obviously be adding the code to this into the forum post, and we'll be looking next at how we would actually create an NPM from that module that we've created. So I look forward to you joining me next time.
Wow. Brian, that was awesome.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. And thank you for joining us today. It was a very nice treat. I'd like to first ask our resident expert here if there's comments that you'd like to make before we start our discussion. Brian?
No, not really. I would appreciate feedback from it. I appreciate any questions. Extensions are fairly new to me. The way I learn is by doing. And I actually learn more by making a video than I would if I just read through it, because it really forces me to think through everything. I can't think, oh, I'll come back to that later, because I'm going to explain it to somebody. I need to understand every part of it. So it's actually a really good process for me to go through to be able to sort of reinforce those skills and fully understand what I'm doing, because if I don't understand it, I can't possibly present it. So that's really one of the ideas behind me doing this. Whatever the videos are is generally what I'm learning at that time.
Well, that's awesome. That's true. The best way to learn something is to teach somebody else how to do it. So let me start by asking a question. What do you envision the most popular use for creating custom extensions?
Oh, where does it end? I mean, if you look at things that I've passed out recently, John, I did one recently for a mail merge system, massively missing within Wappler. Pushed it out as a node extension, John at the moment's got a PHP version of it, which he's going to evaluate when he gets some time. So it's about extending the functionality of Wappler in a way where it plugs gaps in what the Wappler team have done. Seem to be getting more and more involved in the technical side of things, the background stuff, what's happening with Docker and all of this type of thing. And sometimes I feel the components get a little bit left behind. So I'm just really trying to plug that gap. Put out another one the other day, very, very simple extension, just to allow you to interface with ChatGPT. So you could literally just add a component and have it to generate, say, a blog post automatically for you. And obviously it would keep that fresh because every time you generate it, ChatGPT will possibly give you a different narrative on that, which is great for Google indexing because it'll be seen as a refreshed page each time it's seen. So it's really a limit to what ideas you can have rather than what you can do with the technology. So once you get your head around it, it's actually incredibly easy, particularly the JavaScript side. Sometimes you can do incredible things in half a dozen lines of JS.
Wow, awesome. So let me open it up to questions on Ask Brian while we have him here, and please help yourself. Scott, looks like you're ready to ask something.
Hi, Scott.
Hello. So first of all, I've been using Wappler for I think 2 years now, and when I first started to use it, I watched a lot of tutorial videos, and there's one man here who I really need to thank for making me the Wappler developer that I am today, and so that's Brian. I really appreciate all the effort you put in over the years to make the videos and keep making them. So just to reassure you, they do make a difference. I thoroughly enjoyed and found them extremely useful when I was first learning WAP, and still do today. This one, for example. So thank you very much from me, and I'm sure everyone else feels the same. I guess you've already mentioned like you did one for PHP, and so I guess my question is, obviously Wappler supports a different multiple kind of server technologies. So if someone were to create an extension, but they wanted it to be available to everybody, irrespective of what server technology they're using, I guess they gotta go and develop it in different languages, right? PHP, JavaScript, etc.
Yeah, that's exactly. Your HJSON, which is your interface definition, is constant throughout all of them. In the example that I've just produced, you would have my module one, was it? .php, in which you'd have the PHP version of it. And then you can have a classic ASP, you can have a .NET versions, etc. as well. And they can all be published together into the NPM repository. And provide you put the right switches into that HJSON, which comes at about, I think, lesson 3 or 4, you can actually specify which technology is supported by that particular extension.
That's a great answer. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. I'm going home now then.
Yeah. The so one of the other benefits to this from a community point of view sounds like a feature request. So if we have if as we're building these, as Brian's building these or others are building these and sharing them, letting the team know that how many people are using it, that could maybe help push some feature requests forward. So that's something to consider as well. So without, I'd rather have, Brian, I'd rather have you tell everybody instead of me. You want to give us a list of the, maybe I should just show a list of the videos. I'm losing it.
Yeah, probably the easiest way is if you just go onto the Wappler YouTube channel. There's a specific playlist with, I think, 6 videos that I put up over the last 2 days.
Yeah, here we go.
And they're all referenced in the community as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm going
Fine,
to.
that's a handy way of getting the feedback if I make a forum post. Because to be honest, I don't often pick up any comments on YouTube itself.
Just another quick thought on extensions. It's a really good way of reusing something that you've done custom in a project that you want to use in other projects, rather than, because I find I spent a lot of time opening a project, seeing how I did it, remembering bits, closing it, opening the new project, putting it in. No, that's not, I've missed something, whatever, going back to the old, and you're back and forth, whatever. Whereas if you've got a module, like I did one years ago to send you an alert when someone logs in, and it gives you the IP address they've logged in from. So you can just keep an eye on things. And that's something I pretty much do in every project. But because of the reusing of that, to turn it into a standalone extension makes it an absolute breeze to just implement it in all your projects.
Yeah, it's a great example, that, John. Great example, yeah.
I haven't done it, but I will.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, I certainly think that the
I-
fear of doing extensions is far greater than the actual doing of them. Once you get your head around it, it's not really that difficult. They're actually very straightforward to do and immensely powerful for a very small effort. But it's getting that confidence. I was the same early days. Oh, what's this? Sending to npm repositories. That sounds very complicated. Well, it's not. It's actually a quick login and one command will do it. It's so simple once you get your head around the process.
It's a bit like Git repos.
Yeah, same
You
idea.
don't until you use them, and then you think, actually, in their simplest form, they're quite straightforward. In their simplest form.
Did you say Bitly posts? What are
Git repos, like
Git
GitHub.
repos? Got it. Excellent. Well, here's a list of the extensions Brian has put together, including installing, adding, parsing, data pickers. So while we've got Brian here, what is your next video going to be on?
Yeah, what I'm going to do, first of all, modules are the most comprehensive for server side of things. So the whole point of the course is to mainly concentrate on the HJSON side of things, the interface building, because I don't want to turn this into a JavaScript course. Two reasons. One is it'll be boring. Secondly is JavaScript actually isn't that good. So what I'll be looking at is the next module will be about using a checkbox and how you can use that checkbox to hide or reveal another text input. So as a little spoiler, then the next module will be, you'll be giving it a numeric input. And then that numeric input will simply be returned back squared. Simple JS thing. But if you tick a checkbox, you will then be able to put a numeric entry in, say a 3, and as a result, that input will be cubed. So you can define the power of it. So it will default to squared, but by the checkbox, you will have the opportunity to put a different power in, to have a cubed or quadrant or whatever. And this is all about showing how to design this interface and how to be able to reveal and hide components dependent on that. And then probably next after that will be about using drop-downs. So you can use your equivalent of your select within the HJSON, so you can give people a group of choices. I'll give you an example. When I did the GPT one, choose between GPT 3.5 or 4, just with a simple select, and then that will call the appropriate code. So it just makes the interface more streamlined. It's about trying to make the experience as user-friendly as possible.
That's the
That's
perfect way of
awesome.
going about it.
Sorry, I missed that, John.
That's the perfect way of going about it, because it's just little. But as soon as I know that I can get a variable in, and as soon as I know I can get a variable out, you can do whatever. So keeping it very simple like that is the perfect way to learn.
And so very soon I'll be going on to formatters, which are actually probably easier because the HJSONs are not as complex. And then we move on to App Connect, which is a lot more complex because, of course, you have to cater for the events. You've got properties, you've got static events, you've got dynamic events. So there's an awful lot more to it. So when I actually understand it properly, you'll start getting some videos on it.
Well, I want to express my thanks to you also, Brian. The videos are awesome, and they're the way you're doing them in pieces like this with the short clips is, I think, extra valuable because we can go in and to review something, we can find it easily and review something in just a few minutes instead of an hour. So that doing them like this is, from a user's point of view, saves an incredible amount of time and gives us all kinds of flexibility. So thank you again. Does anybody else have any other questions for Mr. English while we have him? All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I want to congratulate John on his son's 18th birthday, who I think he's already off to the pub. And I want to invite all you Wapplers out there, if you have a tip or a trick that you'd like to share, you have a favorite site that you'd like to demonstrate or brag about, we would love to hear from you on our Wappler monthly meetups. We meet at 1600 Netherlands time on the second Friday of every month. And I wish you all a very safe and prosperous rest of your month. We look forward to seeing you in August. Take good care. And thanks again, Brian.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Brian. See you all later.
Have a great weekend.